What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. Today's episode is going to be brought to you by Mystery Ranch, built for the mission. And if you haven't been rocking a Mystery Ranch Fireline pack on your back for the past couple of years, well, your back probably hates you. They make the finest, the most well-built, and the most comfortable Fireline packs in the game. Hands down, end of discussion. But in addition to this, they make a ton of other load-bearing essentials, like if you need to go peel a trophy elk or a trophy deer off the side of the hill, well, they make a solution for you. You happen to need a backpack to throw your civilian clothes in and have available for the next journey to the next fire assignment. Well, they got a solution for you. Hell, they even make briefcases. Speaking of which, check this out. They have the Urban Assault 21 and the 3-way briefcase available for sale right now. And how can we forget? They also launched the Backbone series, but these things tie into each other quite well. Why? Well, because proceeds from the Urban Assault 21 pack and the 3-way briefcase some of the funds are actually going directly to funding the Backbone series scholarship, which is pretty damn cool. So if you haven't checked out the Backbone series or you haven't entered into the Backbone series scholarship yet, well, now's your opportunity. Go over to www.mysteryranch.com and check out these packs if you want to fund someone's scholarship. But you can also submit your entry to the Backbone series and have a chance to win one of these $1,000 grants. So if you want to go back to school, get some education under your belt, well, go over to www.mysteryranch.com and check it out. The Anchor Point Podcast is also going to be brought to you by Manscaped. Oh yeah, your balls will thank you. And I don't know about you guys out there, but if you need to create some defensible space, using air quotes here, below the belt, well, look no further than www.manscaped.com. They have what's called the Perfect Package. Funny name, but it's got some pretty powerful tools in there. It's got the Lawnmower 3.0. It's a premium electric trimmer with the skin-safe technology built into the blade, and it helps reduce those chances for manscaping mishaps, which nobody wants. But it's pretty cool. It's waterproof, and it has a sweet LED, so you could do your defensible space grooming in the dark, in the shower, or in a dark shower, if you so choose to. But it also comes with some pretty awesome stuff. It comes with the Crop Preserver. It's like an anti-chafing ball deodorant. It comes with the Crop Reviver, which is kind of like a cologne. It's kind of nice. It smells good too. And it comes with a sweet little travel bag and a sweet pair of boxers. But check this out. Listeners to this podcast can get 20% off plus free shipping site-wide by entering the code AnchorPoint, and that's going to be all one word, AnchorPoint, at checkout over at www.manscaped.com. So once again, go over to www.manscaped.com, enter that code, and your balls will thank you later. The Anchor Point Podcast is also going to be brought to you by our premier coffee sponsor, and that is none other than Hot Shot Brewing. It's kick-ass coffee for a kick-ass cause, and a portion of the proceeds will always go back to the Wildland Firefighter Foundation. But in addition to kick-ass coffee for kick-ass causes, they have a ton of other stuff, like a full line of Wildland Firefighter themed apparel. They have all the tools of the trade to get your morning started off right, and they have a ton of other stuff. And check this out. They actually support us by slinging our merch. So if you want to get your hands on some kick-ass Anchor Point Podcast merch, go over to www.hotshotbrewing.com and check it out. The Anchor Point Podcast would also like to give a quick shout out to our buddy Booze over at the Ass Movement. And if you don't know what the Ass Movement stands for, well, it is the anti-surface shitting movement. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely hate walking along the trail or going to my favorite fishing spot, or hell, even seeing it on the fire line, seeing people basically take dumps on the surface, not bury it, and gift wrap it in toilet paper. It's disgusting and it needs to stop. But you can help spread the word of the poo-bearing propaganda by heading over to www.thefirewild.com and checking out the Ass Movement. They've got stickers, patches, magnets, posters. They've got it all. And check this out. If you have a problem pooper on your crew, they even have what I like to call the turd trowel. So you can remind them to bury their turds. But listeners to this episode, this whole podcast actually, get a special little discount. If you enter the code AnchorPointAss10 at checkout, you can get 10% off your entire order site-wide. So once again, go over to www.thefirewild.com and check out the ass movement. And last but not least, the Anchor Point podcast is going to be brought to you by the Smoky Generation, also known as the American Wildfire Experience. And if you guys don't know what it is yet, well, Bethany over there has a kick-ass organization doing kick-ass stuff for you folks in the field, like releasing some Smoky Generation grants. Oh, yeah. It's pretty cool. If you guys want to contribute and tell the story of wildland firefighting here in North America, or now across the world, you'll have a chance to win one of these $500 American Wildfire Experience grants. It's pretty badass. So if you happen to be a blogger, a writer, a photographer, a cinematographer, anybody who's telling the story of wildland fire, well, now's your opportunity. I do know that 2021 here is going to be opening up as far as the 2021 grants. So go over to www.wildfireexperience.org and check it out. And while you're at it, browse through all the stories. It's pretty cool. It's like a little digital archive of stories from across the globe about wildland firefighting, dating all the way back to the 1940s. It's pretty badass. So once again, Bethany, you have a kick-ass organization over there. Keep it up and go over to www.wildfireexperience.org and check it out. The views and opinions of this podcast do not reflect the views and opinions of the United States government, the Department of the Interior, the Department of Defense, the Department of Agriculture, the United States Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or any private, municipal, county, or state firefighting organization, any law enforcement agency, any medical provider, or any contractor employed by any federal agency. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. I hope everybody's doing well, and I hope everybody's getting their fitness on and getting ready for the fast upcoming fire season, especially down there in Region 3. You guys are starting, if not started already, you guys are starting up here pretty soon. So I hope everybody is ready for it. So today on the show, we have a little bit of a follow-up, I guess you could say. A follow-up to Mondo Perez's episode there about inmate firefighting programs in California. But today on the show, the only difference is we're going to hear it from the female perspective, which is pretty badass. It's not too often that you get to find the women's corrections or the women's inmate fire program side of the story, but luckily we found ourselves a unicorn, and little to my knowledge, I had no idea of this person's past and where they came from or how they came up through the ranks, but I actually worked with her, and she's a badass individual. And yeah, she was in one of my academies down there in Sacramento. So without further ado, first off, I do want to apologize because I did have my second dose of my coronavirus vaccine during this recording, or shortly before the recording of this episode. So I was a little bit fatigued, and you'll probably notice it on my side of things. She did great. I kind of shit the bed, but hey, whatever. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce my good friend, Julianne Thomson. Welcome to the Anchor Point. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Anchor Point podcast. Today on the show, I've got, my very good friend. We actually worked together at one point in our fire endeavors over at the academy. Miss Julianne Thomson. No P. Thomson. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm excellent. It's been a rough morning, but hey, we got some stuff figured out with the technical difficulties, so we're good to go.
Yes, good vibes.
Yes, good vibes. Just throwing that good energy out there. So today on the episode, we're going to have an interesting follow-up to Mondo Perez's episode, and I'm freaking stoked to have you on the show. So let's get into it. So who you are, where are you from, what do you do? Give us a rundown.
All right. So my name's Julianne Thomson, no P, right? But I also go by Jules. That's what people normally know me as. I live in Sacramento right now. I work for the Colorado National Forest for the Forest Service. Currently I'm on an engine. I just finished my apprenticeship, so I'm officially converted.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time since I've been running you into the dirt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I started in 2017 and I got the apprenticeship on the engine. And then I did the 2 years on Helitac, came back to the engine to finish up loose ends. And then so finally everything's submitted and it's all good to go.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, I mean, congratulations first off, but since we're on the topic of the apprenticeship, I mean, can you explain how that works? Because I never finished mine. I bolted to another crew and took an upgrade. So how did it work for you? How was your experience?
My experience is actually really good. I know a lot of people going into it, they've already had a few years in with the Forest Service. So they have quals, they're already a firefighter 1, they already have their IC5, or maybe they don't, but they definitely have a lot of classes that have been offered in the past at the academy. So when I went into it, I did the foundational and the core, which is now like beginning and advanced or whatever. They always change the name, but I did like the beginning one and then advanced. And yeah, there were some classes that I already had, but there were some that I didn't. But I always tell people, like, even if you do have a lot of quals or time in the Forest Service and stuff like that, and you have all the classes and maybe there's only one that you need to get out of it, I think the most important thing about the academy is the networking. Like, I would have never met you. Shout out to the Green Crew.
Green Crew, where my dog's at.
Foundational Academy, I don't know, is it like 73 or something?
Something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it was a really good experience for me. I met a lot of different people in different forests. And yeah, I mean, and then I was able to so I did time on the engine. That's where I started. And then I did time on the helicopter 2 years. Luckily, I was really, really blessed to be able to do that because I got injured. So I didn't really have like a good opportunity the first time around. So then I got to do it again. And then I had my hand crew experience. So it was really cool that I got to do the aviation side. And then, so finishing the apprenticeship, like I feel like a more well-rounded employee. I just have like different experiences, different people, different skills, the different classes. Like I know that the RX 310 class is not offered anymore because it was a little technical. Like it kind of went over a lot of people's heads, including mine. So there were definitely classes that I needed and that I'm really appreciate. But now it's weird because now they're doing it virtually, because so I know some people, are going through it virtually and they can't do all the classes because they're so hands-on. So that's kind of unfortunate. But I'm sure they'll figure something out where they still like give a good product,
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like the apprenticeship, like you said, hands down, it's all about the networking. And now in times of COVID, since we have to adapt to it, and like you said, it's very hands-on with these skills. I mean, we got to adapt with the times. When we're firefighters, we're resilient. We got to adapt. I mean, you blow a tire out on the line or something like that. Well, you got to fix it right there and figure it out pretty quick. But I think that, it's still a lot of value in it. My one of my buddies, he actually went through the digital academy this year and he said it wasn't bad. So he had nothing but fun stuff to say. That and, the classes, I mean, you're going through a class and you may or may not have that qual over already, but it's all theory, right? You're not applying that to actual situations unless you're like fortunate enough to like go out and do a hands-on burn as part of your class or something like that. But it's just one of those things, it's you get that experience later down the line. So now you're familiarized with what's going to happen and what you may see, but you're not going to get everything out of a class. You're going to learn that in the field.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know like even the academy has evolved too, because this year, I don't know if they're still doing it because of COVID, but they included like the crew boss class. You can either choose, I think, between crew boss or engine boss. And I think that's really cool because we're obviously up and coming leaders and we're stepping from apprentice to senior firefighter or whatever. So I don't know. I'm really for the apprenticeship program because it really helped me just because I came into the Forest Service into the apprenticeship program. So it helped me just kind of like adjust and know the Forest Service way and just meet a bunch of people.
Oh yeah, it's rad. I drink that green Kool-Aid every day. I'm all about the academy because every time I was down there for foundational or basic or advanced or whatever it was, and for crew bossing when I was down there. I had the time of my life and I learned so much. And, you know, that refresher, even if you've already had the class, I think that's pretty good. You know, extra value, added value and benefit to the whole program. That and you get to meet a shit ton of cool people. So like yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Green best crew ever.
Green crew for life. You remember the name game? I was actually talking to, what was that name game PT that I came up with? Do you remember that?
I think so. Like we were in a circle and each person had to go around and remember everybody's name. And then while they were saying the names, did we boss or something like that?
Yeah, I actually learned that from one of my old crew bosses, John Holovnia, and he is rad. He's a great leader and he taught me a lot of stuff. And I actually derived that from my basic academy or my advanced academy? I forget which one, but anyways, that whole like 4 mile run that we did, and every like quarter mile we'd stop and do the name game and like ski squat. That was like one of the most cohesive crews. I've never seen some like a crew. What do we have? 18 or 14 people, I believe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But you guys instantly just like, bam, came together and started working together. It was awesome to see that unfold.
Yeah. It was really even cool for me. Like I picked up a lot of crew cohesive leadership type things that I'll definitely bring into the future.
Oh yeah. All right. Yeah, absolutely. That and you make friends for life.
Yeah. I still see them too. Like I've seen a couple of them. One person, not from the Green Crew, but from that academy actually works on my engine now. So that's kind of a small world.
Fire's a small world.
Yeah, it is. And so it's been cool just to see them out on fires and stuff like that.
Nice. Well, I'm sure you'll see a bunch of them down the road. Who knows? Maybe you'll be one of their divisions or vice versa someday.
Oh, geez, that's scary.
Well, enough about academy. Let's talk about you. So you've had a very interesting rise to your position in fire, and let's go into the details about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where should I start? So I ended up on an inmate hand crew. So I obviously went to prison. Which I know not a lot of people, like some of the people know, like the people that I work with always know, like I'm really open about it. But a lot of people probably would never guess because I look pretty normal, not, so I just ended up having a problem that I didn't know that I had and ended up in prison. And I did the inmate firefighting for 2 years. I went to the Rainbow Camp. That one's in Fallbrook. Which I actually now heard that because I was recently trying to get a hold of them for some information, and that camp closed down just this past year, like at the end of this in 2020. And then one of the other women's camps is actually closing down. So now there's just one.
There's only one in the entire state?
Yeah. I mean, there was only 3 people in the state. So yeah, now there's only one and there's still only minimal people there. Like they don't even have a fully staffed, like 4 crews like they normally would, which is kind of sad. But anyways, so yeah, back to the journey to fire. So that was kind of my introduction to fire was inmate firefighting, which it's kind of crazy to me when I'm just sitting like at the station or something and like, well, like this is my life. Like I took that and it brought me here, So I did that for 2 years. And then when I got out, I knew a couple girls that had recently or paroled before me, and they told me about the OC crew. So the OC crew, if you guys don't know, is like an on-call crew. So it's kind of like for people that know nothing about fire, who just want to see what it's like. Or for me, it was just an opportunity to get my foot in the door. So I joined I did it in 2014 and 2015. So it's obviously not a full season. Like you get your basic 40 classes, like your S130, S190 and all that stuff. And they pay you to do this. And then they'll call you out on an assignment. It's really random. It's really sudden, but you're committed pretty much for the 2 weeks. And the year before I did it, a couple of the girls from the camp had done it before me. So I was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. Like I'm totally down to do that. And it was a really good experience. I felt kind of seasoned because at the inmate camp, like we were fighting fires all the time.
Yeah.
We were all working, and so after my second year of doing the OC crew, the crew bosses at the time, they're like, oh yeah, you guys should all apply for the apprenticeship. I was like, what's that? And so they kind of explained to me what the apprenticeship even was with the Forest Service, but I honestly still had like no clue what I was really signing up for. And so I ended up applying on the USA Jobs like everybody else. And I ended up getting an interview. And at that time, they were still interviewing for the apprenticeship. So I went down to McClellan. I actually did a face-to-face.
That's a kind of a rare thing. Usually it's a phone interview.
Yeah, I decided to do that in face because I was living back at that point. And before, when I was doing the OC crew, I was in San Diego. So I knew I kind of had to move up here to kind of commit more to the OC crew thing / fire because it was up in Chico. So it's pretty far. And then, so then I got a second interview and I was picked up on the El Dorado as an apprentice on an engine. And here I am today, still on that engine.
Still on that engine, just loving life. Well, you did some helitac time too. So, the apprenticeship afforded you a lot of opportunities to go do some hood rat stuff with your friends. There's nothing more I love than IAing a fire on a helicopter. That's probably one of my hands down favorite things to do.
Mm-hmm. It's the way to go. It's the way to go, man.
Locate cooler, establish shade. So when you're on these, on the crew, the inmate crew, what was that like? Because we just had Armando Perez on there, and he kind of gave us the rundown of what it's like on the male inmate crew kind of side of things. But this is a rare thing, and you're kind of like a unicorn, right? No one ever hears about the women's side of the inmate firefighting program. So let's dive into that a little bit more. Yeah.
So it is really similar to the men's crews as far as I know, and as far as Mondo is talking about. So you have like your lead, which they call the swamper. Okay. So the swamper is like the lead person. And then like the Sawyer's swamper is actually called a puller. I don't know. So like all the verbiage kind of got messed up. Maybe it's CAL FIRE style. I don't know. So they're like the lead, they have a radio, and they're like the captain's, right-hand person. And then same thing, like you have like 10 to 14 women on the hand crew. You have all your positions, like 2 SAW teams, your Pulaski's, your McLeods. And then you got your drag spoon in the back, which is like the other connection to the swamper who has the other radio. You guys are like the people at the front and the back, kind of maintaining the people in the middle. And then, but they also deal with like the medical needs. They have the medical bag and like all the supplies on the buggies and stuff like that. So it's really similar. Like I'm sure it's like the same setup. And then the camp that I went to was all CAL FIRE.
I gotcha.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting though, because you had a brief note in here about like prison versus fire camp. It was your time behind the wall, as Mondo likes to call it. Was that way different than in the fire camp? Or was it pretty similar to Mondo's experience?
Probably. I know men's prisons are a lot different than women's. I think there's a lot more violence and just a lot more stuff that happens there. But there still is violence at the prison. So I started going to, like, first you start off at county jail and then you get shipped off to prison. And so the main women's prison in California is Chowchilla. So that's pretty notorious for being pretty crazy. That's where like the lifers are and stuff like that. So that was definitely a very interesting, eye-opening experience, I guess you could say, for someone like me. Like, I'd never been arrested before. I've never been in trouble. The least of my troubles was like, I got like technically arrested and released, but it was just like, okay, sit on this curb, be quiet. And then they let us go. It was like very not serious at all. So going to Chowchilla was definitely, it was a crazy experience, but I knew, like, in the beginning when I was going through my case and everything, my lawyer even told me, he's like, oh, you're going to go to camp. You're going to go to camp. I was like, what's that? He's like, don't worry, you're going to go to camp. So the whole time that I was going through this process, I had the intent of getting to fire camp. I guess that was kind of always my journey. And so when I got to Chowchilla and they assessed me, I qualified to go because I didn't have a whole lot of time. I originally was I got 6 years for my sentence, but I was a half timer. I know Mondo kind of touched on it. Like he was an 85%er. I was a 50%er. So then technically I only had 3 years to do. So then my intent with the whole journey too was to also get to fire camp as fast as I could because I wanted to reduce my sentence as much as possible. So like the more time I had left on my sentence, the more they were able to reduce because I went from 50 to 35%. So once you go from Chowchilla, if you qualify for camp, then you go to CIW, the California Institution for Women. And that's the prison in California for where they do all the fire training. And that's CAL FIRE related too. There's a CAL FIRE captain that's there and they go through the S-130, S-190 class. You start off doing like basic PTing. It's called PFT, physical fitness training, I'm assuming is what it was.
Some acronym, some weird acronym like that.
Yeah. And so once you test out of that, then you have to like wait to get your gate pass, which is basically like you get permission to be released from the prison to go do a PT hike that you have to pass. So it was like a 45-minute hike uphill. And at the time it seemed really crazy to me. Like, I don't know if it was because my boots didn't fit. They were really crappy boots. I mean, they weren't the best.
Some Danders or something.
They were like, I think they were basic whites boots, but they were like the basic, I don't know. They weren't the boots that I have now for sure. But I think they were too small. So I had a bunch of blisters and that hike was terrible. But my goal was literally to PT and to train and get through this whole fire training program as quickly as possible. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely, that's one of those things too. It's like going to your first fire, it's like, you're just wide eyed and you're like, holy shit, what is going on right now? So it's to be expected on your first hike. But as far as going from that initial release into the camp, I mean, what was that process like for you? I mean, did you have to do anything in particular to get onto these camp crews or?
Not really. I mean, again, like I was saying, like when I was assessed and I qualified, that's kind of like the avenue that they push you towards. I know some people that didn't want to go to camp and they tried everything like getting into fights or what have you to stay at the prison. But they're just like, nope, you're going to camp. So as long as and I was down for it. Like I knew that if I could reduce my sentence, I'm going to do that. Like if I can get home to my family, I'm going to do that. So once I pass that hike, then they just ship you off to camp and then you just kind of learn from there, honestly.
I gotcha. Yeah. I mean, and the training, the onboarding program, when you first got into camp, what was that like?
So they just kind of put you on whatever crew is open. Like if there's a spot for you. And then you kind of you're basically the last in the order, you're a McLeod, monkey paw, last firefighter got it,
Last tool, no radio.
And then, yeah, like if you're going on a fire the next day, that's what you're doing. Like, it's really crazy.
Did you guys get to see a lot of fire?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The crazy thing is, so the camp that I went to was in Fallbrook, which is close to San Diego. It's like maybe 30 minutes from where I was living. So a lot of the times when we were on projects and stuff, like I would literally be doing the project work like 10 minutes away from my house. Or we'd be on like the 15 freeway doing freeway fires a lot of the times. That's what we did a lot of the time. And then you go, off forest and we went, I think we pretty much stayed in South Ops because obviously that's a South Ops region. So I think the farthest we went was either like Bishop or I went on the Rimfire and the Stanislaus. Like that was pretty cool.
Nice. So you guys got to get a lot of experience though, like during your whole stint with them.
Yeah, I think for the 2 years that I was there, I went on like, I don't know, 40 plus fires.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, because about it, like we're pretty cheap labor, so it's really easy to fix us into the budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a fixed and known cost as far as firefighting resources go. But that's another thing too. It's like it's almost being exploited. At least I've heard. I don't know, of course, but I've heard rumor, and I've actually had a couple hit me up. A couple of people hit me up about Mondo's episode, saying that now it's kind of like it's like a forced kind of thing, and it's bordering on exploitation, or it could be considered that. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but what was your experience like? Was it kind of like shut up and do what you're told? And I mean, or was it kind of optional when you were going through it?
I mean, like, could you, if you didn't feel physically fit, or if you just didn't want to be in fire camp, we kind of had the option. Like, I know some people were on the crew and then they're like, I can't do this anymore. So they put them in the kitchen, or they put them in the office where there was like clerical work to do, or there was a mechanic shop, or a fuel person to refuel the trucks when they would come in, or the saw shop. Like, so there were minimal options, I guess you would say. So there were still somewhat options. But I mean, with like the whole slave labor thing, I kind of don't think it's slave labor, just because like I made the mistake of going to prison. So in my opinion, I didn't even expect to get paid. Like, even though we were getting paid $1 an hour when we were on fires, we were getting paid like 45 cents a day to do the project work, like our Monday through Friday job. Even though that is like slave labor wages, like I still think I was paying a debt to society. So I didn't feel like I should really be paid at all. And the fact that I could parole with some money was actually, I was really grateful for. So I don't know. That's just me though.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing too, is like, especially when I was talking to Mondo about this, it's like, there's a lot of silver linings to this whole program, but there's also a lot of drawbacks as well. I mean, yeah, it could be considered exploitation, but like you were just saying there, I mean, you feel like you're paying your debt for society.
Yeah, and I honestly, from what Mondo was saying, there obviously has been some changes, which I could see just because with the realignment of the prison system and not many people going to camp and the camp shutting down, with then now COVID as a factor of people even filling up these camps. Like, I could see them forcing people to go to camp, whether or not they want to, just because they need that program to sustain itself.
Yeah, I guess that's understandable. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like one of those touchy topics, and it's always been controversial, and it always will be controversial. So I think it's important to have that shared perspective of your experience out there. It's one of those, it's important for people to hear it on the other side, I guess.
Yeah. And I always looked at fire as like a great opportunity to be of service to the community. Like, I took so much away doing what I did to get to prison that I felt like it was my way of giving back by helping the community and the land in a large way, and then like when people would have like, thank you firefighter signs, or people were so appreciative. Even when we were in our inmate uniform things, and that made me feel really good that people appreciated us regardless of what color outfits we were wearing, or whether or not it said CDCR prisoner on it or whatever.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing. It's a greater purpose, and I had that discussion as well with a lot of people on this podcast. It's like this career, whether you're an inmate firefighter or a regular Joe firefighter or whatever, hell attack, hotshot, doesn't matter. You have a higher purpose of what you're doing. There's a lot of purpose behind it. You're actually doing something that matters.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm still doing it.
Yeah. And then you turned it into a full blown career. I mean, you just graduated from the apprenticeship academy, and yeah, you're journeyed out and kicking ass and taking names. It's awesome. It's awesome to see that. I think it's really inspirational. And furthermore, I mean, we'll get into this a little bit later in the episode, of course, but you're now mentoring other people as far as other women in fire that have maybe walked a similar path that you have into, another fire program.
Yeah, I mean, I try to. I still keep in touch with a lot of the women that either was at camp when I was there or they were on my crew. Like our crew is really close, like kind of like how our green crew was at the academy. Our crew at Rainbow was super close. And then there was like a phase where a lot of people started paroling. And then the crew kind of changed, but like our original crew was pretty tight. And so like sorry. Some of them I still keep in contact with. Actually, like my girlfriend, I met her at camp. Like we were on the same crew. Like it's a really crazy story, but
You guys met
like,
there? Really?
Yeah.
That's so rad.
She was the Sawyer. She was like the second Sawyer, and I was her swamper for a long time. And then eventually she was first saw, I was second saw. And then so our team kind of split, but like that's kind of where our friendship formed when we were saw partners. And then she went into fire for a little bit. And then she got asked out of the apprenticeship because of her age. And so she went elsewhere, but like we still share that bond. And like she knows obviously what we go through or I go through today. And some of the girls like still live here in Sacramento. So I still keep in touch, and I'm still like, if they have any questions or want to get into the Forest Service or whatever, like we're all still really here for each other and support each other through our journeys.
That's rad, man. That's so cool. So what about the training, or not the training? I'm sorry. What was that like being on an all women's inmate firefighting crew? I mean, you just mentioned the cohesion was there and the leadership was there. What was that like for you? I mean, could you go into more detail about that?
Yeah, for sure. It was really awesome. For me personally, like, so when I went to prison, I was 24, so I was pretty young. By no means did I ever grow up thinking, oh, I want to become a firefighter. Like I wasn't physically fit. Like I never worked out really. I wasn't really active. I mean, I did some sports as a child, but growing up, like I didn't really think that this would ever be a possibility. So for me personally, being in this fire camp and doing the stuff that we were doing, like was really empowering. And then also with just being around all women, like we were a badass crew. Like we got stuff done. And even on some incident that we were on, some of the people said like our hand line was the cleanest hand line. Like women are known for being detail oriented and just really thorough people. And so I don't know, it's just really cool and really empowering to be around all these women. Although sometimes, it got catty and petty and, the drama was for sure there, but overall it was just like a really cool sisterhood I've never really been cool with a lot of women. So it kind of turned the perspective on that for me.
That's right. That's good to hear that everybody was very cohesive too. It sounds like you had good leadership in place. What was the leadership like?
Yeah. Shout out to Captain Ortega. I hope all the Rainbow ladies will listen to this, but, Captain Ortega was our captain, obviously. And we had a couple fill-ins here and there, or like subs, but he was the main, and he honestly did a lot for me personally. And I know a lot, he did a lot for the other girls that I still talk to. He was like the type where he was really quiet, but when he had something to say, he was always like really serious. He taught a lot. He always made like really wise decisions. So for me, like I trusted this guy with my life. I didn't know much about fire, but I'm like, well, I got to trust him on this. And so every time, like I felt like I was never in danger. I always felt like I was protected and safe. And then kind of like the changing point for me was, so at the time I was like lead Pulaski or something. Like I moved up from the back, I was moving up, people were leaving, whatever. And then there was a point where he wanted me to be the second SAW team, and be the Sawyer. And at that time I was kind of like dancing with the third SAW on projects and just kind of getting a feel, but like, I didn't want to be a Sawyer at all. I was scared of it. I'm like, it's too heavy, like screw this. But then he pulled me aside one day and he's like, hey, Thompson, he's like, I want you to be my second SAW. I'm like, no, Cap, like, I can't do it. Like, I don't want it. He's like, well, you're all I've got. and I believe in you and I think you can do it. And I was like, okay, sure. Why not?
Here we go.
Here we go. And I remember like my first few PT hikes, because we PT'd all the time. Like we would hike every single day. We did like some calisthenics, but most of the time it was hiking every single day. And we did the crew hike with the saw, and it was terrible, man. Like I was complaining. He's like, Thompson, do you want to go back to prison? I'm like, no, Cap. And like, so I just like sucked it up from there. But overall, like his leadership for me, like made me the employee I am today. Like that's how huge he was for me.
That's rad. I mean, yeah, I think it's very important that, that you learn from good leaders, and you were fortunate enough to have a great leader during the Inmate Fire program. And then you carried those leadership qualities on even through your apprenticeship into where you are today.
Yeah. I learned a lot of, you don't have to say much to get respect, or like, I just know for me that, knowledge is everything. And I want to learn as much as I can and give back to people as much as I can. Like one of the girls that's on our engine right now, she's just going through the apprenticeship. So I'm kind of excited that I can hopefully help her through that journey. Like it's exciting to give back what I've been given.
Oh yeah. That, and it's that mentorship too. That's an important quality to take along with you in your fire career. You never know who's going to be listening to you. And you never know what you might impart on their career. It might be some of the greatest piece of advice, and you just have no clue of what you're even saying. You're just saying something in passing, and it could mean the world to whoever you're saying it to.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's been quite the journey.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a long journey, that's for sure. But as far as your experiences go in the inmate program, do you think that groomed you for taking on a career within the Forest Service?
Oh yeah, like I think it gave a really great foundation of just like learning how to use all the tools. Like I learned everything about the chainsaw, which is really good to know. I don't fall a lot of trees because I'm still kind of scared of trees, to be honest. But like I can still get down with the chainsaw, and also like just basic fire behavior. The only difference is for me is, so a bunch of the fires we went on when I was at the fire camp was in South Ops. So I know a lot of SoCal fires. Then when I moved up to Sacramento and then got the job in the El Dorado National Forest, it was all North Ops, which is way different fuel types.
Oh yeah.
A lot more timber. So that was kind of an adjustment for me, and just learning that fire behavior. And I'm still learning for sure. Like I definitely have not seen everything. That's for sure. So I'm like still continuously in the learning phase. But and then also the thing that I'm still trying to shake is going from CAL FIRE's ways to the Forest Service. Like on the inmate crew, we were doing the 24 on, 24 off, and we were doing 21-day assignments. And like the hardest thing for me is shaking the fact that like I have an issue with still taking the initiative or like doing things without asking for permission first kind of thing. It's really weird. But sometimes I don't take the initiative on all things because I'm just like thinking like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble, or like, oh, am I supposed to be doing this? I don't know. It's really weird. And I'm still just trying to like jump out into it and take more initiative on stuff and like ask for forgiveness later type thing, But that's been kind of challenging. But.
Yeah, I can see why, though. I mean, just by past experience, I can understand. I mean, I got shitty qualities that in my fire career that I, want to get rid of, but it just takes time. You got to work on those things. And that's for everybody out there.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, as far as this whole experience, though, changing your life, how would you describe that?
Sheesh. Like, it's weird because obviously I never thought I'd be in prison. Like that definitely was not the roadmap for my life.
I don't think it is for anybody. Like straight up.
Yeah, right. But like it totally changed my life for the better. Like from the beginning of the process to where I am today. Like if I didn't go through that, I don't think I would have like the perspective on humanity that I do. And then just in terms of fire, like it gave me the tools like in my personal life, but also job tools and skills to have an opportunity at a career, because I didn't know what I was going to do when I got out. I worked some jobs, like I worked in coffee for a little bit, which I do give that, I give that away, and I tell people how to make good coffee because it's super important in the fire world. Like I always do a coffee class and it's super fun because everyone loves coffee, right?
Oh yeah.
Not everyone, but most people.
I mean, yeah, right here. I'm all about it. It's like 11 o'clock or it's 12 o'clock. It's almost 12:30 and I'm still drinking a big ass cup of coffee.
Hell yeah. So yeah, I give back to all my guys the knowledge that I have about coffee. But there was even like crap jobs that people were not hiring me for, and like I don't have a bad record. It's just that one, it's bad enough. It really is. But yeah, I was still being put in that box. So for it to come full circle and I'm still in fire to this day is like, I don't know. It's just beyond me. Like, whoa, this is my life. Like I always sit back and I'm just like, whoa, like I went from there to here. And it's like, the experience is still really close to me, but it's been a long time. Like it's almost been 10 years since that journey started. So it's been a while, but it's still a huge part of who I am today.
No, yeah, it totally makes sense though. But you mentioned something right there that was pretty important though. Is like you experience with just, your coffee jobs or other, jobs that you're applying for when you're out. You experience some kind of like side eyeing and some, they're kind of profiling you in a sense. So let's go into that. I mean, did you experience any of that with when you're applying for the fire program with the Forest Service?
No, it was actually, so my girlfriend was in fire a year before me. So I thought, well, if she can do it, then I can do it. And I was honestly really surprised that a federal agency would hire somebody like me. Like I would have never thought that would have been the case. So for me, it was really a nice surprise that this agency was willing to work with me. And I think it kind of started with the OC crew because, like if they had me there and they didn't care about my background, then, and I would ask them questions like, hey, do you think I'll get hired and stuff like that. And then now, like, even in my interview for the apprenticeship, I actually kind of used it, in my favor. I was honest about it. I was like, I don't have the best path or past, but, I'm grateful. It's made me who I am today. And I really think that I can be like a benefit to the agency. And even like on my resume and stuff, I have a cover letter and I go more in depth about kind of what that experience has taught me and how it's made me a better employee and a better person to society. Because I realize now that it makes me unique. It makes me stand out. Like it's a different avenue to this agency and to this job. And we all need those like different people and different paths. And so I'm really grateful that I've never been shunned away from the Forest Service because of it.
No, that's awesome. And you use it as that transparency is key argument too. I mean, that's really important too. And you actually weaponize that to actually make it more beneficial to where your resume would stand out. That's pretty interesting. That's a good tip for people moving along if they happen to, have a record and they're trying to apply for the Forest Service or the BLM or does whatever fire agencies out there.
Yeah, I mean, use it to your benefit, and it's obviously made you to who you are today. And if you still want to fight fire and that's your passion, like, I mean, you're a good worker. You learned a lot through that experience and you worked your ass off to get to where you are,
Oh, absolutely. So let's go over to the application process with the record. I mean, was it more difficult for you than, say someone with no record? I mean, I'd assume it would be, but let's go into that a little bit.
Like with just applying on USA Jobs, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the whole application process. I mean, is it any more difficult or any less difficult? Did you have to do any like things special to do your application process?
The only thing that I remember doing is when they onboard you. So at this point, you've already gotten the job, but every time they onboard you, whether you're an apprentice and you're doing like your winter off and you're coming back on or whatever, you always do that like declaration of employment or something. And you have to put all like your personal information. And then there's a question in there that asks, have you had a felony in the last 7 years or something like that? So obviously like I have to mark yes. Now I haven't done it because now I'm permanent. So I'm not coming off of employment or coming back on unemployment. But you have to put yes. And then down in a blank section, it asks for like, what was your charge? Where were you arrested? What county? Who was your parole officer? Blah, 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 blah. So like, you just had to put a blurb. I don't know what they used it for, to be honest. But that's pretty much all I've had to do. There was a hiccup with like getting my government license because my charge was vehicle related. So that was like kind of iffy, but the time span had already passed that I was in the clear. Like I already had a valid license by the time I joined the apprenticeship and got a job with the Forest Service. So my license was clean. But there was still kind of like a little iffiness with that.
I gotcha. And yeah, I mean, it's curious to me because you don't hear this too often. And I think it's important that people know.
Yeah. And normally like with other jobs, usually like when you do an application with just a generic job or wherever, you do the application and then it goes pending and then you have to wait for like them to do a criminal background check. And some places are just more serious than others. Like some just will have no tolerance for any felony. I don't know how long they usually go back, but there was one job where I ended up getting the job and then they had to do a criminal background, like a different criminal background check that was maybe more thorough than the first time. So I was already working there and then they had to let me go because my record popped up on there, even though I told them like, hey, I do have a criminal background. Is this going to harm me in getting this job?
That's so that was shitty, man. That sucks.
It does. It makes it really hard. Like I know why people go back now, like they prison because that's what they know. It's easier and it's hard out here. Like you're being fed to wolves out here, just trying to make like an honest living. And it's just, the system's not set up for you to succeed. Really. It's really hard.
Yeah. And I got, the recidivism rates are pretty damn high for anything, for anybody who's coming or cycling out of the prison system. It's high. I mean, if you don't have a job lined up to where you can actually make a decent living, chances are you're going to go back. So getting your foot into the door, especially with a great job like, being a firefighter, it's important.
Yeah. And for me, like, so when I got out, my first job was, I was a fair carny, basically. Like I was selling kettle corn at a kettle corn stand. Okay. And that's, at this point I'm 26 and I'm selling kettle corn at a fairgrounds. Like, I don't know. It just was a very humbling experience. I'll say that. But that was through like word of mouth. And then through that job, I was able to get another job through word of mouth. And that's really kind of that's the only way I've really been able to get past the whole felony crap is through just word of mouth and networking and making positive connections with people to where they know who I am before knowing my record.
Yeah. I mean, was that transition period between exiting the inmate program and going into, I guess, the normal world, if you would want to call it that. Was that pretty difficult for you or?
Surprisingly, yeah. I never thought I would be like institutionalized, and institutionalized meaning like just kind of you're very, like your habits and everything are just very prison like. You're just used to like the lingo and the verbiage and just how you carry yourself. And I just never knew being in prison for only 2 years would have affected me. But getting out, it was like, I remember the first couple days, I didn't even know what to wear. Like I couldn't even make choices, because all my choices were planned out for me. Like the officers, would tell me, okay, this is when you're eating, this is when you're going to sleep. And, you would be given outfits and like everything was already given to you. So like coming out and making choices was really difficult. It was a really strange adjustment with that. And then I didn't have a vehicle to even get to my parole officer. So I had to take public transportation, and it was like way on the other side of the county. So there was a couple of times where I missed meetings with my parole officer, and I'm like, hey, look, lady, like, I'm really sorry, I'll do better next time, whatever, and, yeah, it was definitely, and it was hard to detach from camp because I had made such a like little family there, and I was so close with the girls that I really was like reminiscing a lot and like kind of missing them. And just, I had such a solid program there and, like kind of in a protected little world of my own. But it was kind of weird to be back in this crazy of a normal world.
Yeah, I had to use air quotes there, of course, but that's the interesting thing. I can't talk either. Apparently you and I are on the same page here. So you had that fire family experience though within the inmate program too. I mean, is that pretty common? I mean, I'd assume it would be. I mean, it's just like any other fire crew. It's just in a different context.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're sharing, the same living and eating space and you're fighting these fires together, like we would live and breathe each other. Like, we would go to the bathroom together. We would shower together. We would eat together. And we were so close all the time that there was no way you couldn't make bonds with these people. Like when you're delirious and it's like you're doing a 24-hour shift on a fire, right? And you get delirious and like you're just trying to buy time. You have these conversations and you hear a lot about these people's lives. And that's where I kind of learned like these people in prison, like they're not all just these, criminals and crazy people. It's like, no, they just had some problems and made some bad life choices. And here we are all together, like whatever.
Yeah, I hate that too. It's because like the media pumps it up or like you always see like the worst of the worst. And so that automatic assumption is like, oh, this person's a criminal. It's like, no, they're a person. They may have made a bad mistake or, fucked up somewhere along the lines, but it doesn't mean they're a bad person.
Yeah.
Not necessarily,
exactly.
At least.
Yeah. I mean, there's some, bad stuff that happens out there too, but like for the most part, I mean, we are all just people.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, that's the thing is I'm not saying like you can't just generalize and categorize all of the folks that are behind, in prison, that you can't just automatically assume that they haven't changed or they're just going to be that way forever. It's intellectually dishonest. People change.
Yeah. And that's why like, I'm a firm believer that like you can change, like people do change and here's the if they're willing to, like if they're willing to put in the work, if they're willing to do something different, then change is possible.
Oh yeah. And I think everybody's capable of it. I mean, shit, you're a shining example of it. And look, you've taken that experience and you turned it into something great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely been a really enriching journey. Like it's weird saying I don't regret it because I'm glad I went through it all. Do I regret what happened? Sure. But I don't regret the whole journey itself.
Made you who you are today. Hands down. Yeah. I mean, as far as anybody who's walking in similar shoes though, what would you have as a recommendation for them to get into fire or to anybody that's out there looking for an awesome career? What would you, and they might have a criminal record. What would you suggest to them?
Like we were talking earlier, like just be yourself, be honest. Like you don't have to be totally transparent. Like, okay, these are my charges. This is what I did, but just, like use it to your benefit. And if they ask you, like, be honest, and just, guide yourself with integrity. Like, you messed up, like be accountable to your mistakes. Right. But that you're being better and yeah.
Oh yeah, and you're living proof that your past shouldn't dictate your future at all. It's kind of a common theme with you and Mondo. It's a powerful thing, man. It's inspiring is what I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like, it's not who I am. It's part of who I am. And there's many different parts of me and my story and my life, but, and fire is not all I am, you know? But yeah, like we shouldn't just define people by their past.
Oh, absolutely. So as far as like that real, see, there I go again. Maybe I haven't had enough coffee. You got to teach me your tricks as far as making a good cup of coffee. So as far as like that real sisterhood and family, let's go into that. What does that mean to you?
That was like a really important part of the journey. Like I was saying, I wasn't really close with a lot of women. I didn't really have a lot of women friends before, but after that, and I mean, it's really like, it's obviously similar in fire. Like there's obviously not a lot of women in fire. Mm-hmm. So I'm instantly closer to the women that I meet in fire along the way, just because I know our struggles, or I know my own struggles of being a woman in a male dominated job. And it's kind of like that empowering, like, yeah, go ladies, you know, and like, I automatically support any woman going forth with this, or just any women in general that dare to be different, you know? So, and keeping in contact with some of the women in fire camp has been really important to me too. Like that's a journey that is very unique, that not a lot of people go through, kind of similar to the military and in fire too. You know, like there's just some experiences that nobody gets but you've been through. And so that's just really special to me.
Oh yeah. You got to walk a mile in those shoes before you truly understand it, what somebody else is going through. That's for damn sure.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So as far as we're getting to the end of the episode now. So as far as like getting a hold of you for questions, I know you don't really do the social media thing too much, but how do we get a hold of you for questions?
I guess Facebook works for me. Julianne Thomson, Thomson, no P. Or email is totally cool. Julianne.Thomson1486@gmail.com. But yeah, I'm totally willing to answer any questions. I'm an open book. Like if you want to ask me, and I'm even open with people, like anybody in fire or in general, like if they have any questions about what happened or whatever, like I'm totally an open book.
Hell yeah. And I hope you can guide some people through the process of getting their foot in the door as far as getting to be a wildland firefighter. I think it's an excellent career. It's not without its, its drawbacks, but you get paid in some pretty awesome sunsets. That's for damn sure.
The service, and like, yeah, we don't fun, but for me, it's like, okay, I got paid $1 an hour, like this is way better. And also we didn't really mention like the expungement thing. I know you and Mondo had talked about it.
Yeah, let's go into that.
Yeah, real quick. So I've been kind of looking into it. And from what I know, as long as like whatever your charge that you committed, you did at a fire camp, like you did your time in fire camp, you can get that record expunged. Now, if you have like priors that weren't served at an inmate fire camp, you can't get those expunged. Because like the stipulation is like if you do prison time for your charge, then you can't get an expungement. If you do like jail time or it's just a misdemeanor, yeah, you can get those expunged. But like if you have felonies that you serve in prison at an inmate camp, like that bill that passed was like, it was beyond me. I was like so excited. I'm like, wow, this is a huge step. Like I never thought in a million years that I could expunge my record. I just kind of was like, okay, it is what it is. I'm going to make the best of it. But with this bill passing, like, I think it's a really huge step in the right direction for people to really have more opportunities than they did before. So I'm really excited. I think it's awesome. And I'm definitely going to look into it. Not to like jump ship or anything, but it's just like, for me, it's kind of weird because what you do is like you go from a guilty plea to a not guilty plea, which then like, I don't know. So that's kind of weird mentally because I know I'm guilty for my personal situation. But like just to have the freedom and the fact that I don't have to put down that I'm a felon, because like it affects all things. Like even if renting an apartment, like they make you have a higher deposit because you have a criminal background because you're more liable.
That's such bullshit, man. Come on, people.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, now it's been enough time passed, but I'm super excited about that bill because I think it'll change a lot of people's lives.
Oh yeah, it's going to be for the better too. And it's like we were talking about recidivism as well. It's going to reduce that immensely, especially if you can go get a kick-ass job doing something in the public sector or the public service sector.
Hell yeah.
I'm all about it. Yeah, I've got a beef with prison systems, of course, and especially the privatized prison system. But that's a topic for a later off the record kind of thing. But yeah, no, thank you for being on the show. It was awesome. And I'll definitely drop all that information in the show notes. That way people can get a hold of you if they're needing some questions answered or just want to hear what it's all about. So thank you for being on the show. And what's that?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. It's been a long time since Academy. That's for damn sure.
It's been a long time.
Go Green Crew.
Hell yeah.
Oh, man. So at the end of the show, I always like to give the opportunity for you to give a shout out to a homie, hero, mentor. Could be several. Take it away.
All my ladies at Rainbow Camp, Crew 1. Hopefully they listen to this. If not, I'll tell them to listen to this. No. But also the mentor of Captain Ortega. I hope he listens to this too, because he did a lot for me. And also all the women that have come before me in fire and are there with me right now on this journey. We can empower each other, and just kudos to all the women that, are in this male dominated field.
Hell yeah, ladies, get some. Shout out to all the ladies in fire. Oh man. Well, cool. Jules, it's fucking awesome to see you, man. That's definitely been a long time, and thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story. It's pretty cool. I didn't even know when I was doing the crew boss shit down in Sacramento with you guys. I had no idea.
I know. I didn't think you did. So that's why I was like, I'll mention it and see what you think. And yeah. I don't hey, I'm Jules. I'm from an inmate camp.
It's not like it's on your business card or anything like that.
Right.
Well, Jules, once again, thank you for being on the show, and send your girlfriend some love.
Hell yeah. Thank you.
Right on, homie. See ya. And boom, there we go. Another episode of the Anchor Point Podcast is in the books with my good friend, Julianne Thomson. Julianne, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your perspective about the inmate firefighting program, especially from the female side of things. That's pretty crazy. It's an incredible journey that I was completely unaware of when I first met you down there at the academy, but it's pretty badass. And I think the more people need to hear these stories, and I think it's inspiring of where you came, about the story of where you came from and how you ended up in fire and all the things you've done in between. It's pretty cool. And I hope the message definitely reaffirms the previous episode and your episode's message of not letting your past define your future. I think it's awesome. So Julianne, thank you one more time. I appreciate it. It's awesome. For the rest of you, I hope everybody likes the show. And I hope everybody's getting prepped for the season. It's right around the corner. So do your due diligence. Start training if you haven't done so already. And start prepping mentally and physically for the upcoming fire season. With that being said, we'd like to give a shout out to our sponsors. We got Manscaped. 20% off and free shipping site-wide with the code ANCHORPOINT at checkout. So go over to www.manscaped.com and check them out. We've got Mystery Ranch, purveyors of the finest packs in the fire game, period. And they are giving back to the community with the Backbone Series and the Backbone Series scholarships. Definitely appreciate what you guys got going on over there. We got the Ass Movement. Funny name, but I love your message, man, because there's nothing more that I hate than people surface pooping on my favorite public lands. So you guys can get 10% off your entire order over there at www.thefirewild.com by using the code AnchorPointAss10. What else we got? We got Hot Shot Brewery, kick-ass coffee for a kick-ass cause, and they are slinging our merch. So go over to www.hotshotbrewing.com and check them out. And last but not least, we've got the Smoky Generation, or also known as the American Wildfire Experience. So go over to www.wildfireexperience.org and check out Bethany's organization over there and put your name in the hat for one of those $500 grants. It's pretty badass. Anyways, you guys know the drill. Stay safe, stay savage. Catch you on the next one. Peace.